Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Leading Innovation at Work. I'm your host, Lorri Rollinson, and welcome to this special edition of the wellness version of Leading Innovation at Work. I'm so excited to be joined here today by our guest, Stephen Brown. He's the Vice President of Global Market Development at the International Well Building Institute. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephen.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
I'm really excited to learn from you today, but just before we get started, one question I love to ask all of our guests, because the world is changing and moving so quickly, and there's new professions that are developing as we get more evolved and more sophisticated. And one of those professions is around wellness and well-being. And I just love to hear about how you ended up in this profession and just your background. What was the career path that you had to lead you to this?
No, great question. So I've spent most of my career on the manufacturing side with flooring and furniture manufacturers, primarily supporting global corporate clients and their workplace strategies. When I was based in Hong Kong, covering Asia Pacific back from 2012 to 2016, is when things started to take a turn. So the company I worked for actually well certified their Shanghai showroom. And that was my first taste, and that's when I really fell in love with the whole concept and spent my whole last year over there just telling all my clients about the well building standard and saw how excited they got. When it was time for me to relocate back to New York almost 4 years ago, I was able to join the well team full time and have been helping share the word all the time around the world still.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have any advice for people that are interested in a career of well-being, or what are some of the typical career paths that cross-pollinate with this capability?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because as we've moved forward, it's almost like this well village is being created. So there's all kinds of impacts in different disciplines that all sort of support this movement. You can do it through the lens of architects and designers. You can do it through the lens of real estate companies. You can do it through just true consultants from sustainability or wellness, manufacturers, corporate clients. It's basically if you are like-minded and care about, trying to find ways to improve the health and well-being, and in this case, through the built environment and through real estate, there's all different ways you can touch it. And I think the easiest way is to look at becoming a well AP, just kind of study and get some basics around the standard and then figure out how that can apply to either your current role or a role that you want to move into. One interesting thing, I see a lot of large corporate clients use this as a career step. People that have been doing sustainability for many, many years or just real estate and want to kind of get a better seat at the C-suite table. They see health and wellness and becoming a well AP and focused on how to implement this is something that gets more attention within the senior leadership.
I love your philosophy too, Stephen. I think one of the most successful manifestations I've seen of things like sustainability, and I imagine it's the same thing for well-being programs, is it's not some department that's parked off to the side. It's people that are integrated into day-to-day functions everywhere in the company. So everyone is responsible and contributing and advocating versus a separate unit that seems to be parked off to the side. So I love your philosophy of what you're suggesting.
Yeah, and then what I've found is you just try to find well champions, and they can be, CEOs or facilities or just anybody in the ranks. It's just somebody that cares and is passionate about this, who finds ways to sort of get other people on board.
Yeah, makes great sense. Well, I'm really excited to learn from you, Stephen.
Great. Well, with that, I'll jump right in. What I like to do before I kind of get into some of the latest updates is just show three visuals to get us all synced in the spirit of, our environment and the impact on our health and well-being. If you think about zoos, the older zoos used to be these horrible cages, and they've obviously progressed to more natural environments. It's no surprise that the animals live longer, happier, healthier lives. It's the same with people. If you put us in a thriving environment that keeps us connected with nature, or the opposite, you're going to have good or bad impacts. And when we're thinking about vacation, generally we're not going on Trivago to try to plan a holiday in a conference room or an office with our family. We're all trying to figure out how can we get outdoors. Again, our craving for nature is where we are happiest and healthiest. And when we realize that, how we look at space needs to be very different. I'm going to try to kind of cover these 5 areas quickly first one is just trying to figure out, how we make a big difference together. The other thing is the sort of way we deliver health and wellness through real estate, which is kind of a newer concept to many. The value of well through the lens of senior leadership and more business reasons. Just where the global well movement is today, and then a little bit about the new portfolio program, which is really changing everything that you may know today. So to kick off, why are we here? We're trying to impact the world on a healthier level, and there's a couple things that it's interesting to know. First thing is, when you think about all the things that do have impact on our health and our lifespan, a lot of them can be prevented. The non-communicable diseases. Based on lifestyle choices. The insufficient physical inactivity. I mean, this is a global problem, not just in the U.S., and it has huge health impacts when we're not moving the way we should. And the last thing is how we spend money on healthcare. The U.S. is kind of the most broke. We spend the most money per person on our healthcare, but the U.S. is not living longer than over half of the world. What we need to do is try to spend money differently. Right now, we spend it on the back end when it's most expensive. So hospital stays, surgeries, expensive drugs. We should be spending this on the preventative health side to try to avoid becoming sick altogether. And the other thing I like to point out on this is 75% of where the money we spend is on those non-communicable diseases. Again, things that are in our control based on environment, lifestyle choices. So we have an opportunity to really improve things if we just think differently of how we invest in our solutions in space. The industry itself is huge, and this gives me a chance just to quickly tell the audience sort of how well even became to be. Our founders actually came from Wall Street, tracking trends and markets, and they saw this health and wellness industry, how big it was and how fast it was growing. And they thought there must be some really strong synergies if we combine that with the largest asset class, which is real estate. So the next thing they did was invite in the same room architects, designers, across the table from scientists and healthcare professionals, and ask the question, have you ever talked to each other about the health impacts on people through the spaces you're designing? And they said no, but what a great idea. And that's kind of where the next 7 years of research went into building what we know today as the well building standard. There's tons of data out there that already tells us what good or bad air quality does to our performance, good or bad lighting, healthy or non-healthy foods. It just never was kind of all pulled together and then translated into the lens of the built environment, how that can impact us. And now that we've been out there for a little over 4 years, we're starting to see projects and metrics coming out, the impacts. This is just one example because it's publicly available with lots of data online from the ASID headquarters, where they used both well and LEED and went for platinum on both. And they saw some really strong outcomes that you can dig into that. Again, it's a public research document to find out what happened there. The other thing we're trying to do is make this more accessible. One partnership we started last year was with the enterprise community. They already deliver low-income housing that's sustainable to the marketplace. We just partnered. Now they're going to deliver low-income housing that's both well and sustainable. So people and planet, healthy, and the environment need to both be focused, but for the people that might not be able to afford it otherwise. Now to change gears, delivering sort of health and wellness through real estate. And this is something that, we're really generating the knowledge of this, and it's exciting to see. When I joined the Well team, I assumed that the biggest impact on my health and how long I was going to live was going to be my genes, what I was born with, and my access to medical care. It's actually one of the smaller pieces. So the biggest impacts is your social and physical environment and your lifestyle health behaviors and choices, again, most of which is in our control. When we know that, and we all know the fact that we spend too much time indoors, we really need to think about the spaces we are hanging out in, and if we're in the position to create space, how can we do it better? One of the philosophies out there that's been around for a long time around, sustainability and investing in sort of LEED and other certifications, we've always focused on saving money on the energy cost, but we're missing out on the bigger ROI opportunity because the most expensive part of the building is the people inside. So what Well is all about is trying to impact that by 1 or 2%, and you're going to have a lot better opportunity for return on the investment. So let's focus on the most expensive piece and improving that. Just a quick catch-up for those of you that are familiar with Well and Well version 1 that's been out there for a while. If you don't know, we improved and came up with a new version 2 last year. And it really did a lot of things after us learning in the marketplace through many, many projects, how to make this better. And there's an article that you can find online as well that just shows the side-by-side comparison so you can understand the difference if you were an early adopter. But just some simple concepts I want to make sure everybody understands. The well building standard is holistic as far as it covers not only design and construction features, but it also covers HR policies and building operations policies. And those three things together is what gives us the biggest impact on people outcomes. We all know a lot of the environmental things that are causing us health issues now. Simple things around air quality, simple things that we're just not drinking enough water. We're walking around dehydrated. We all talked about sitting. It's so bad for us. Well, it is, and it's huge health impacts. And then just noise, acoustics. The performance and productivity drops dramatically. And we should be able to fix these things. And now that we have the well building standard, you have this blueprint that gives you solutions for solving many of these problems and a lot more. Again, directed back to the true health impacts on our body systems. Some of the things we did from version 1 to version 2. Version 1 had a high precondition count. So there's a lot of preconditioned features that you had to achieve before you could even move on. We realized that is just not practical, especially for existing buildings, which is most of the real estate out there. So what we did is we lowered the preconditions and raised the number of optimizations because, there's a lot of different ways to get to a healthy building. And we know that there's a lot of different buildings have different situations, so you need to have more flexibility at the avenues to get there. And we also made it more flexible for other spaces than just offices, where we kind of focused on early. Version 2 has the flexibility now to do all commercial interiors. So we're seeing projects in airports, retail, education, healthcare, senior living, all those types of spaces. So flexibility is extremely important. The other thing we realized is the point system we kicked off with version 1 was brand new and different. But why did we start with something new when everybody already knows the LEED scoring system? So we kind of changed it to align with LEED since most of the market already understands that point system. The other thing we realized, when you have a new standard, there is a learning curve. And if you're doing your first project, it can be a little daunting without a lot of support. So with any new project that's registered, you get one of our technical coaches from our HQ that's there at the very beginning to help you and or the consultant through the process, which is much easier and much more enjoyable to do something, especially for the first time. The last thing is around performance verification. Our standard really relies on this as what makes it extremely valuable, is we have a third party come out and measure how healthy your building is on these 5 major areas, air quality, water quality, lighting, thermal, and acoustics. And you get an actual scorecard, which is extremely important versus just designing to something or doing a checklist, because when somebody asks you, how can you prove how healthy your building is, if you don't have this sort of third-party scorecard, it's really hard to tell somebody exactly what you've done, and if you're going to do any reporting, to have some materiality third-party verified. What we did find, though, was with the performance verification piece of this, was it's not scalable. We were sending U.S. teams from GBCI all around the world. Not very cost-effective and doesn't help with lead times. So we developed a well performance testing agent group where we already took existing companies that are already doing all kinds of testing and commissioning for LEED, for BREEAM, and just other testing areas. And we put them through our training program, and now they have certified people that can do this locally all around the world. And many of these companies already have contracts and relationships with a lot of the clients that we work with. It also gives the market more competitiveness to bid. So now you can get more than one quote for different pricing, and if you have global negotiation power, then that can help you long term. I'm going to show a quick video, if this works, because it really summarizes what WELL's all about before I kind of move on to the next phase.
I think it's now time for wellness to come to the fore, because as an industry, we are well versed on sustainability in its broader incarnation. This is the next level.
The spaces that we live and work in every day have a significant impact on us as human beings.
If we don't consider the human health and wellness of people that will occupy the spaces we create, we're not getting it right.
A well building is one that is designed and constructed and maintained to improve the health, happiness, wellness and productivity of its users.
We are considering their well-being as a core value to our organization.
Everybody wants good quality air. Everybody wants high quality water. One of the interesting things about the WELL standard is that for the first time we're really quantifying things like the role of nourishment and mind.
What this is really doing is dealing with chronic issues that are affecting our workplace. Designers can actually create spaces that incorporate solutions that affect the human body.
就是在所有的建筑当中，大家都知道有很多成熟的标准，但是这是第一步，是国际性的、全球可以适用的一步，关于建筑和人的关系的，特别是人的健康的关系的这么一个标准。
What I love about the WELL standard is the fact that it is based in scientific research. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're looking at how do we take that data that already exists out in the public to create our buildings.
It's a third-party, evidence-based, science-backed rating system that tells you how your space is performing.
To have someone come on site and physically test our space was pretty incredible so that we could get live feedback from all of the systems that we had designed.
Employee satisfaction is absolutely crucial, and it's a clear predictor of business performance. We get fantastic feedback from our employees working in this space.
They're saying things like, I'm sleeping better. They start talking about how they love coming into the office every day.
Human cost is one of the highest costs, up to 90% of operating a business. So retaining and attracting the best people is really important.
And I think when employees see that this is something that's a priority to the company, I think they recognize it's a company that they want to work for.
The WELL building standard is an easy choice to make. At $1.10 per square foot for our project, less than $1 a day per employee, the return on the investment is priceless and really can't be measured.
If you want to keep your people productive and passionate, make sure the workspace is a healthy, vibrant environment.
In the same way with the green building movement, once we knew how to make buildings better for the planet, we had to do it. It was a moral imperative. Now we know how to make buildings better for people. We have to do it.
Here we go. Well, that really sums up what WELL is all about and trying to do. Now to kind of switch gears to sort of the value of WELL. I spend a lot of my time with multiple stakeholders within companies, things from real estate, senior leadership, sustainability, engineering, facilities, everybody that sort of impacts the space and the programs. And I put together a list of some of the most common reasons most companies are really looking to us for a new strategy. First one is a very simple attraction retention strategy, human capital management. Everyone's trying to figure this one out. The second thing is just to improve the investment value of their company and or their real estate portfolio through different reporting mechanisms. GRES for large developers, which is a global real estate sustainability benchmark, or ESG reporting mechanisms. The other thing which is new to us, which I'll spend a little more time on, is supporting the UN Global Compact Sustainable Development Goals. We're aligned with them, and I'll tell you how companies now can really leverage that if they also are concerned about reporting. Mental health, this is a huge one. I see this on every client meeting. At the C-suite, it's a huge challenge, and we think we have a new solution to help try to combat some of this. The last big one is just culture. Everyone's trying to improve or change their culture, and especially with the spirit of health and wellness in mind. Some of these other reasons are also important, pretty self-explanatory. The bottom line is everyone's trying to figure out how to invest into the most important asset, and that's their people. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you can find a way to have happier, healthier, more productive and engaged employees, it's going to help the business. So the first thing around ESG reporting, and this is sort of maybe different conversation than you might think coming from WELL, but the fact is people are now trying to figure out these sort of social ways to improve the company reporting and narrative and attract future talent. And when Larry Fink put his CEO letter out a few years ago, about if you don't have strong ESG strategies, you're not going to be relevant in the future. What we found is the top two strategies right now most companies are trying to figure out is one, human capital, and the second is, climate change. Most organizations have been attacking the sustainability and climate change story for a while, but human capital is a little bit newer. Historically, it's been a very hard thing to report, but could be arguably the most important thing to have impacted the business. One of the challenges, just to give you an example, is imagine two companies trying to say my wellness program is better than yours. That's a very difficult thing to report. It's really apples and oranges. Now that we have Well, and especially Well Portfolio, we have a third-party benchmarkable reporting metric that companies can now compare what they're doing to invest in people's health. To change from sort of ESG reporting to the Sustainable Development Goals. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this, but the United Global Compact has 17 different sustainability goals. They're basically things for the world to focus on making everything better in all different areas. We officially signed up for this last year, and here's the 17 if you're not familiar with them. Our standard, every feature impacts all 17 in some way. Number 3, obviously, is the most. It's just focused on good health and well-being, which is what our standard is all about. But we can literally help with all 17 of these. What's important to understand is when you look and find an organization that is already signed up to support these, this is an example of Citi, for instance. You can pull up their profile. You can look at what SDGs they're currently reporting on, which are the ones in color, and the ones in gray are ones they haven't found a way to improve or support. With aligning with Well, we can say we can help you color in all 17. Let's figure out what helps you the most. Just to give you a screenshot example here, if you go onto our website and look at all the features of our standard, every feature has been tagged exactly which SDG is being supported. So you can literally pick features that support whatever SDGs your company is trying to promote or improve. The other thing that's interesting is the third good health and well-being sustainable development goal is the third most focused on of most of the companies that are signed up to support this. So again, we're in a great place to help you if that's one of your strong focuses. And the last thing around this is the investment community. These 3 financial organizations actually use the principles from the Global Compact as an ESG investment filter, basically evaluating investments in companies. If you're supporting SDGs, they primarily give you more value because historically, if you look at peers that do and peers that don't, the peers that support the Sustainable Development Goals generally have a higher return. Switching gears here, back to HR. I spend a lot of time with wellness groups, and there's a few conversations that I have most, and I'll just kind of share what they sound like. The first thing is most corporations that have wellness programs have a budget per employee that they have to pay out every year, whether people use it or not. We see about an average of $700 to $800 per employee here in the U.S. We can estimate the cost of doing a well-certified space to be about $100 per employee one time. So the sort of first cost in is already an interesting conversation. The second thing that we talk about is participation rates for wellness programs. Generally are pretty low. Again, we see averages of like 15 to 45%. We can argue that a well-certified space will give you 100% participation because anybody entering that building is participating. They don't have to choose to, enjoy better air quality, better lighting quality, healthier foods, design that makes them move, and all the other parts of the standard. And the last thing that we talk about, which gets HR wellness teams excited, is generally the most expensive part for claims is your unhealthy population. And the unhealthy population in most organizations participate the least in wellness programs. So if you have a well-certified space and your unhealthy population is working in that space, there's an opportunity to have some impact, whether you improve their productivity by 1%, improve their health by 1%, you have a chance to get at that very expensive, unhealthy population. And the last thing we talk about is existing wellness programs. They align very well with the concepts of our standard. Just showing you a few examples here, because what we're trying to do is not compete with wellness programs, but add more clarity, more attention, and kind of highlight the good things that wellness programs are already doing, but we might also find ways to fill gaps and give you new ideas through all the 10 concepts of well. The next conversation that I get involved with quite a bit is around the culture. And there's a lot of things that make up a good culture, but health and well-being is one of those. If you don't have that pillar, you're going to miss out on everything else. You see the other areas that are kind of talent attraction areas: leadership, purpose, opportunity, success, appreciation. You have to have all those things. I always say using the well-building standard does not solve the problem if your manager is not a good one. There's all kinds of things that go into a good culture. The last thing, mental health. This is one of those challenges, both from a cost standpoint and a big concern, from burnout and worse. The C-suite that I get involved with a lot looks at the rising cost, and they can't figure out what to do to slow it down. Aon did a kind of a resource group with all their corporate clients and asked them, what are they doing to try to tackle this problem? And they came up with some of these areas, the 4 areas: social, physical, emotional, and financial. 3 of those align very well with all the features of well. And you can see some individual examples of things that different companies are working on to try to address well-being. We know that space, environment, and policies can have a huge impact. And that's why people are looking at our solution as one way to try to tackle this. It's estimated to be one of the highest costs by 2030. So it's something that everyone's trying to figure out how to get ahead of. And the last thing is just the cost of doing something or not doing something. And these are also areas of measurement. A lot of times, you can't fix or manage anything you don't measure. So you really have to kind of evaluate, what are you measuring today and what should you be measuring? And then sort of look at what those numbers look like today. And then if you do the well-building standard and come back a year or 2 later, you can track what progress are you making. And it's really helpful to figure out how to make improvements. So the movement, where have things been over the past 4.5 years? Globally, we've just hit some big milestones. Just last month, we crossed over 4,000 projects, 500 million square feet in 58 countries. So it truly is growing globally very quickly. And our Well AP community, which is similar to the lead APs, is over 10,000 now. And that really helps give us momentum, because now we have people that can coach, train, and spread the knowledge of well anywhere in the world. Here's a few examples of different organizations that are engaged with us at some level. This is by no means a complete list, but sometimes it's good just to see what different areas are working with us. When it comes to customizing our health solutions, an interesting thing that's happening is companies are coming to us saying, we understand that things are different in different parts of the world. The health and environment is very different in the U.S. versus India or China, for example. We agree. So what we're trying to do is help pull together public health data that's already out there. And we picked these 17 countries to begin kind of pulling together what we're calling the country briefs that gives you a real deep dive of what's happening in different areas. And then gives you an opportunity to align the top health challenges and align what features in the well-building standard can help address those. Here's an example in the U.S., just looking at the top 10 concerns and how different features within well help and align with that versus something in India. The top 10 is different, and you need to maybe build different strategies in your real estate and policies to help deal with the very unique health challenges of different countries. And when it comes to India, the reason I point this out is because many of the global corporates that I work with are re-looking at their India real estate strategy because it is such a difficult place to live from an environment standpoint. They want to spend more money and make sure at least the offices that people work in are safe and can help them during their day. And we're really seeing growth, and it's getting ready to explode. I was just in Bangalore last week. It was exciting to go to the Goldman Sachs new office that just got well certified. And they did an amazing job really pushing through, local challenges in the market, but they were committed and really found a way to deliver a great project for the people in the space. The other thing we're trying to do is make this standard more accessible, both from a cost standpoint and try to help other markets. These locations have discounts available to them, India being one, but also different sectors. We're trying to help governments, schools, nonprofits, charitable organizations, low-income affordable housing also have access to discounts for well fees to try to make health a little more accessible. Want to remind everybody that we are not competing with green certifications like LEED. We're actually partnering with them. We share the same GBCI third-party certification body for both standards. A lot of people don't realize that. People and planet is the best way to focus and deliver a good space for people. We also have crosswalks we've developed with a lot of the major green certifications like BREEAM, Green Star, LEED, where we show the overlap. So you know if you get this feature with well, it's equivalent to this feature with LEED. So you don't have to do double work. And the overlap we find is about 20%, primarily around air quality and materials going into space. After that, we go in two separate directions. We focus more on people health, and the others then focus on sustainability and the environment and energy savings. And the last thing I like to point out is, you know, once you've been out there a little bit, you start to get noticed. And then we were recognized on the Innovative Companies list last year. And when you do get recognized, you get more calls and more people want to figure out how you can help them, which is an exciting place to be. So the last thing I'd like to just quickly go through is well portfolio. And this is a whole different angle than this sort of individual building well certification. So what we found in the first few years is, you know, companies that do the well certification, it's great, and the people in that space love it. But what happens is, what about the rest of your employee base? Everybody says, isn't my health and wellness just as important, and when can you do this to me? And it's very difficult, both from a cost standpoint and efficiency standpoint, to do this at scale. So we knew we had to come up with a different type of program. One of the things that we've, you know, some of the areas that we were trying to focus on in this sort of new program was, one, we needed something you could apply well strategies at scale, which means anywhere in the world very quickly. We needed something that streamlined all the cost, documentation, and the performance verification. We needed something that was extremely flexible, something that helps you well certify space or pre-certify space or not certify space at all. And I'll get to that point a little bit more. Benchmarking, everybody wants to know, you know, how are we doing internally? How are we improving the health and wellness of the spaces that we have? And then a portfolio score. A lot of organizations said, I want to do this thing globally. I want to be able to have a score that I can report and compare to my peers in reporting to show the progress I'm making on improving the health and well-being of my global portfolio. So what we did was had a pilot phase. And that was over a year ago now. We were hoping to get 3 or 4 organizations to help us sign up and help us build this program that wasn't even available. What we were surprised is how many organizations said, we want to help without even having a program or pricing or details. And we had over 36 organizations. Here's some of the names. And it was a great mix of companies. You know, some corporate clients like a Barclays, BNP Paribas, some real estate firms like CBRE, JLL. We have you know, different developers, manufacturer, actually a healthcare group, Adventist Health. So we had a great pool of people to help us build value into what we now can call the Well Portfolio Program. Very simply, it's a dashboard that manages all your real estate locations through the lens of well and the 10 concepts. And it helps map out how your progress is doing across each asset. One of the things that's nice is you can use this for figuring out where you want to spend money when it comes to capital projects spending at the beginning of the year, which assets kind of need to have more investment versus others. It can help you identify which assets are already close to achieving well certification based on features already accomplished. And it also helps you if you have strategic areas, if you want to focus on air quality or focus on things for mind and well-being. This really gives you a platform to help you do that. Just to give you a quick example of the efficiency of this program, we asked our pilot participants, you know, give us some operations, policies, and design standards that you think you could apply globally across all your assets. Here's a list they gave us. So imagine if you were to pick, let's just say, one of these anti-smoking policy. You pull together the paperwork that shows you have this policy in place, and you can apply that to all 100,000 locations, whatever your portfolio is, in one swing. versus if you were to do this one building at a time, it would be much more labor intensive. And then imagine putting in your assets into the program. So you put all your locations wherever they are around the world. You do a high-level assessment of kind of where they stand now from a feature count or different concepts. And then the idea is every year you're trying to just improve the health and wellness of all your locations over time, not chasing an individual certification. And then you start to go for your yearly portfolio score. And if you look at just an example of 5 assets here, some of your assets are going to meet preconditions of well, some aren't. Some are going to have certain optimization features accomplished. Some are going to be certified, some are not. And then the last thing, which is a weighted score, is how many employees are in each building. The more employees you have, the bigger the health impacts. That's going to have a higher weighting, which gives you your final portfolio score. And again, you're trying to improve this each year for something to report for ESG, your sustainability reports, and just compare with your peers. The journey here, the most important part is just enrolling. And during that enrollment process, you get the opportunity to learn more about the program, because this is a bigger deal. And we know it's going to take more time for you to get into the dashboard, work with our global coach, and really high-level analyze your portfolio before you decide to move forward for a longer-term subscription relationship. And just to give you a quick flavor, enrolling into the program is a $25,000 fee. And again, that pre-registers all your locations if you want to move forward with well certification. It gives you your global coach to help you analyze your portfolio in the dashboard, and you just learn more details of the program, which will help figure out what your subscription fee will be based on the size of your portfolio. And that's when you decide to either move forward or not. The great thing is if you enroll and learn about the program, you can decide, hey, this isn't for me, that's fine. You can take that $25,000 enrollment fee and apply it toward a single certification project, which many of our engagements are already looking at that anyway. So it's really kind of a low-risk look at the portfolio program. Now, bottom line, it's a program that just helps companies globally impact their employee base. It gives them more to report to the markets on what they're doing to improve the health and well-being of their people, which helps in all the different business reasons I discussed before. You know, kind of looking ahead, what we're seeing is the need for continuous monitoring in smart buildings. You need to know what your environment is doing to your people. Just a quick example, I had a huge project in China where everybody moved in, about 3,000 people, and somebody had a personal measuring device of air quality, and the VOCs were off the chart. An email went out. All 3,000 employees left the building and said, we're not coming back in until you can prove to us that space is safe. 3 weeks later, in a horrible, 6 o'clock news press in the marketplace, they came back. But the bottom line is this is almost becoming a liability discussion, a risk-averse discussion. Organizations need to know more about their environment than their employees do to avoid those types of issues. But also, if you're measuring these things and you keep following up on that, you can find problems that might happen, but you can fix them quickly. And that's what employees appreciate. Do you have a system in place that's going to care about their health and well-being long term? The last two things, for anybody that just wants to get more involved with us, we have 2 different things that you can think about. We have a new membership program, which is for all types of organizations, consultants, design firms, real estate firms, practitioners, well APs, whatever it is. If you want to kind of share brands and figure out how we can work together, you can check that out. And the last thing is we are actually having our first well conference in Scottsdale, Arizona coming up end of March, which is a pretty exciting chance to just pull together all well-minded people and really share ideas and get everybody excited about where we're going in the future. So that's all I have at this point, and I really appreciate everybody's time.
Stephen, thank you so much for that overview. I consider myself to be fairly knowledgeable about this topic, but I learned quite a few things in just your explanation of the program and all the different dimensions. So I really appreciate your life cycle explanation. A couple of things in particular I really value about the WELL standard is I work with engineers, and you know that expression, what gets measured gets managed, and in our organization, in our culture, what gets measured gets valued. And I really appreciate the systemic ability to measure and provide feedback, and how benchmarks are so built into the program, as well as how simple the different elements are articulated. So I'm really grateful that the program is so well laid out, but it's not just a once and done. Beyond the certification, you really foster a very programmatic approach to how the whole program is not just implemented, but managed. And that statistic that you said at the very beginning, I thought was really powerful. You know, like you, I always thought it was genetics that played a big part, but the social aspects are really important. You know, your day-to-day physical activity makes up for a lot of that, and certainly overshadows any genetics or any of those circumstances. So I thought that was really valuable, and considering how much time we spend in buildings and how much time we spend at work, more time than our family, I thought it was really, really insightful, and just reminds us that as real estate leaders, we have a responsibility to play a role in supporting our employees. Stephen, do you have time for just a couple of follow-up questions? I just have a couple of quick ones.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, so when you talk to different organizations, you shared the kinds of organizations that are adopting this and are embracing this. Could you tell us a little bit around the characteristics or the conditions for those companies? And could you tell us also about sponsorship? I'm really interested to hear if you when you approach a new company, does it come from, do you approach real estate first, or is it HR that first engages you, or how does that all work? How do you navigate through the organization? How do you get them to value it, and who do you talk to?
No, great question. And the answer is slightly changing now that we have the Well Portfolio program, because it's just a different conversation. It happens multiple ways. I'll just give you a few examples. So with Barclays, since they were one of the first to sign up for this, the CFO actually approved that. So how it started is I kind of got to know the real estate team first. Then I was connected with the sustainability team. And the global sustainability leader actually jumped onto this because she was already doing reporting for other ESG matters in their sustainability reports. And she basically said the CFO is looking for a different way to be competitive in the marketplace. You know, in the financial world, everybody's kind of already in this environmental climate change space. It's hard to separate yourself. Their senior leadership, to their credit, said we see health and wellness as a way to separate ourselves from our competition. And they thought the Well Portfolio program was the perfect vehicle to help them do that. So then it got everybody on board, and now they're doing it for a much bigger reason. You know, this is like, let's do this thing globally. It's not one building at a time. We want this to be a journey, an investment, a change in culture, and how we spend money, putting our people first. Other areas, people literally just want to say, you know what, we're just trying to go for certifications, you know, LEED or WELL or whatever it is, and we just need a more efficient way to do it. It's more cost effective, and we can do it as we have budget and need over time. But most of the time, you know, real estate's involved, sustainability is involved, senior leadership's involved, and HR, because you can't do this without HR. And the fun part of that is when you put HR across the table from real estate and they learn about WELL and how much impact they have, the light bulb goes off. The HR team all of a sudden says, wow, I didn't realize how the real estate team has so much impact on my KPIs. Once they really understand the impact of people and space and policy. So it's fun to bridge all these different silos together, but it's different entry points. You still have to just find that well champion and somebody that really cares about the health and well-being of their people and looking for solutions to deliver that.
Such a great point and observation, Stephen. I was speaking to Enrique Rubio, who's leads Hacking HR. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they're one of the top 5 conferences in the world in HR. I'm speaking at their conference next month. And I asked him a question. He said, why do you want to speak at this conference? Because I'm not an HR person. And I said, for the reasons that you explained about better connecting HR and real estate. And I asked him this question. I said, HR is obviously responsible for developing the program of employees and, you know, setting the goals around vision and culture, that sort of thing. But I said, how much of your time generally do HR professionals spend actually activating that? How involved are they? And he said, and we did a bit of a pop quiz with his audience, and it came in at less than 10%. In fact, most people said less than 5%. And I said, the reason that I want to engage you all is because real estate is always there. Like if you look at the managing the facilities, not just the hard features of the building, but the actual operations, we touch employees every single day in the environment, in the way that we operate. And we deserve to know what your strategy is so that we can execute and report against your objectives. And you could just see the light bulbs going on. So I think your point is so well stated. And even though it's the same reason why we're like in real estate, we're studying workplace psychology and things like that to enable employee experiences, because we in real estate play such a strong role in the everyday operations and interactions of employees as they carry on their journey. And we really can impact or enable productivity of those employees as part of our interactions. So, well, really great point.
Yeah, no, and the thing about that is another interesting dialogue that's happening because of this is, you know, in the world of real estate, unfortunately, there's been always a focus of, you know, how do we save money per square foot type of thing, right? You know, just get the most out of what you can.
Yeah.
And we're trying to change the dialogue. This is an investment in people, and we're actually having dialogues of maybe money should start to come from different groups in the organization now if you truly look at space as an investment in people's health. So that's why HR and senior leadership are now starting to look for, you know what, maybe we should be funding some of this. So it's not just a capital expenditure budget or a project which has a finite amount, but this is truly having impact on everyone, and that financing dialogue is changing. Huge paradigm, but it's exciting to see the at least discussion of it. Where it ends up, we'll find out. But it's exciting because you do have to change your mindset if you really want to do this right.
I totally agree. I think that's also one of the reasons why we're seeing more hybrid leadership roles like chief experience officer and things like that, which converge a number of topics, not just around employees, but premises and IT and enabling technology and wellness are a big part of that program. But I really appreciate how you've so articulately explained how it works in concert with those other areas together and supports, not competes against them. And I really particularly appreciate, you know, the measured approach, obviously, because I get asked about that all the time is when people say, oh, should I invest in this or that? And it's anything around people, they always want to, how do I measure productivity? And I think you've laid out a very articulate framework that is accountable for performance. I applaud you for that. I'm going to do what I can to attend this conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have attended a number of different sessions with speakers from your organization in the past. And if you have not heard more about the WELL program, I really encourage you to attend this conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, March 29th to April 1st. And if you're a golfer, you'll love it even more. But I really thank you so much, Stephen. Is there any parting comments or anything else you'd like to advocate for the audience if they'd like to follow up? Maybe either it's your LinkedIn or your website, or just tell us how we can continue the conversation with you.
Yeah, no, just feel free to reach out to me or anyone in our organization, because there really is a lot of new, exciting things that if you haven't heard about them in detail, it's worth taking a look and just seeing if it makes sense for your organization. We are trying to make a huge difference, and we think we have the platforms and the progress to do that. So just reach out and help us help you.
That's wonderful. Hey, just one more last question, and it's a question I try to ask every one of our guests is, do you have any favorite books that you'd like to recommend to our audience? My audience knows that I'm a super book nerd, and I read about a book a week, and I love to read. Even on my holidays, I read business books because I just really love what we do. So I just love to hear any book recommendations that you would like to share with the audience that might help them to understand more about it can be about this topic or something related. So do you have a go-to book that you can share?
Actually, there's a few books I would throw out there for people to read. The first one is The Healthy Workplace Nudge by Rex Miller. It just has lots of great concepts, literally with what we're talking about here and how environment can impact people's behavior and health. Another book, which is newer, called Fit Cities. by Karen Lee. It's just an interesting to show how cities are trying to, again, create the environments for healthier people living in them. And the last one, which I love, is just Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I mean, that is such an important thing that just guides all of our health issues. We never get enough sleep, and if we can all get enough sleep, we would fix so many challenges and problems. And when you read that, it really makes you think a little harder and gives you great, great strategies to try to do a little bit better than you might be doing today. So those would be my three I'd put out there.
That's wonderful. And I'm always surprised when I hear books that I haven't come across yet. Rex is actually one of our other speakers at this particular conference, and I'm such a fan of his work, a number of his publications, but the other two books, Fit Cities and Why We Sleep, I have not come across yet. I'll make sure I put links to those at the bottom of this video so you can easily click on it and find them pretty easily, as well as any other reference material that Stephen would like us to include or redirect so that it's at your fingertips and easy to find, as well as the link to this conference so you can sign up. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Stephen. It's really been a pleasure. I've learned so much from you today, and I hope to see you in person at the conference.
Sounds great. Really appreciate the time.
Well, that's great. Well, this is Lorri Rowlandson from Leading Innovation at Work, the Wellness Edition, signing off for today. I hope this information has served you to implement the future today.